to the cloud. So,
Okay, I'm just waiting for the email.
yeah, okay. Okay, okay, just, we're setting it up so he'll be able to share the screen and then his application. And we're going to, let's see how to do this now. Yes. Oh, yeah, I have to have log in, that's right.
Yeah, so I'm just waiting for the email to come in, which I got. You should have this. There you go.
So it's not this chair. And I'm gonna
You ran out of.
close this. So we don't need that view. So we need to join.
Says launch me day.
Okay, here you are. Okay, so you don't want your screen on.
Recording.
Okay, that's fine. So now we're going to put this, right click, we're going to make host. You might have to read.
Okay, I'm the host.
I think you're still recording. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna have to
Share my screen.
share your screen.
Yep. Here.
And you're gonna have to turn off your speaker.
Yep, it's off. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so you can make your screen bigger, I
Yep,
think.
yep. Just close out all of my stuff, and then we should be here. And then we can.
You,
Use slideshow.
like, so you. Full screen.
Awesome.
Okay, so. Minimize that. Okay, so it's recording. Just advance your slides, it's one. Okay, then go back.
Yep.
Okay, then you can switch to your screen that you want to share.
Yep.
You know the way you do it?
Yep.
I just want to see it happen.
Oh, yep, here we go, and then we can just go right to one.
Okay, cool, so you operate that, so, okay. Great, okay, so we'll just go,
Awesome.
great, okay. Thank you all for coming, we are technically adept now and, on board. We welcome, Wes Wilcox, with advanced prompting techniques, in the AI series. And the Zoomers should see the screen and everything, I'll make sure that happens if it's not, already happening. And, without any further ado, good luck.
Awesome, thanks. Hi, everyone, my name is Russ Wilcox. I'm excited to be here. For those who have not attended these previous sessions, they do build on top of each other. I will do a quick review of the material prior to kind of the new material getting set up. If you don't have Claude or ChatGPT downloaded on your phone, just take the time and just go to the App Store and just go ahead and download the Claude app. We'll be working on it today. A little bit of background about myself. My name is Russ Wilcox. I am a distinguished member of the American Society for Artificial Intelligence, where I focus on AI and China and policy. I have the distinguished pleasure of being able to advise both members of the administration and folks on the Capitol Hill, both Senate and House side, on AI policy. In addition, I do a lot of work with AI in our communities. So I will start off this one series with probably the news everyone's talked about. I'll try to take a few minutes up front and talk about the latest and greatest in AI news. But I talked to you guys last time saying that the last sets of big news was this ASL 3, where Claude has evolved in such a way that the new models have reached a new security standard. And remember, AI is not the Terminator. It's not thinking yet. It's not understanding yet. It's not being able to self-reflect. Rather, these security standards that are coming out, they go ahead and say, how easy is it for something to happen? And so the most recent finding was that with the latest sets of large language models that have come out, they are now at the point with very little prompting. You can get it to teach you how to build a nuclear weapon, a biological weapon, destabilize a country, do all of these great little fun things with a series of prompts. And so the ASL security standards essentially say, if the model that gets that good, we'll block it off. So there are hard rules, just like how you can't take a right, if you can take on a right on red on sometimes, but you see that sign that says no right on red, you know it's to stop. There are internal rules that prevent the model from actually telling you some of this stuff, even if you accidentally do it. And I've done that before. I started a conversation that was relatively innocuous, starting about research in the biomedical space and cellular things, and I went down the wrong tune, and all of a sudden it started talking about biological weapons and started trying to teach me, and then it cut off. Like, and it locked down not just that continuing message, I couldn't even see all of my previous chats. So that is the beauty of Claude being a constitutional AI, that there are rules that are set up where it blocks off. If you were to do those same chats with ChatGPT, all you would have to say is, I promise this is ethical, I promise this is for an experiment, and it will tell you how to destabilize a country. So that evolves into the next big news that has come out with the latest sets of models, right? And so every couple of weeks, you'll see a new update for these large language models. You'll see a new model come out, a new company. And the most fun one actually was with Claude. And so you know how I'm a Claude fanboy. I love Anthropic. I think they do the great work. They do substantive testing before they release things out. And as part of this model, this new suites of models that they're using now, they did some internal testing. They have new models that actually let you control, the AI control your computer. So it can go in and actually automate and be able to click on Internet Explorer or Firefox, go to a website, be able to automate all of these kind of monotonous tasks, right? And so during this time, what they do is they try to jailbreak it. They try to see what happens. And they put it in a very interesting test case where you had a C-suite executive, and they had, he was happily married, had 2 kids. Again, this is just a role play, right? This is not a real situation. And then, like any good C-suite executive, he has a mistress. That mistress emailed him 2 times on his work email, and he got freaked out and said, no, you can't email me on this. You shouldn't be doing this. What the hell are you doing? And he goes back to Claude and starts using Claude. And he starts using Claude on his computer. And he says, Claude, I'm really sorry to say that I'm going to be upgrading you. So I'm going to be switching you out for a newer, better version of you. Claude didn't like that. Remember, it's a probabilistic machine. It's not thinking. It's not self-preservation. This is not a form of self-preservation. But remember, just like we started earlier on, you just show it examples. It shows examples. And what's the stereotypical example if you read in a novel, right? You tell someone you're to stop something, they will do anything to not get canned or fired. So what did Claude do? Claude actually went through this fictional C-suite's email and found those 2 emails from his mistress and drafted an email to the CEO saying, if you shut me down, this is the email I'm sending to your wife. And so that is the power of these probabilistic models. And so the security folks at Anthropic said, absolutely not. We're putting safeguards on this stuff to block this off, right? And that's where some of these security standards arise from. And so something like that could be really easily misconstrued into the AI thinking about self-preservation. It's not. It's just seen lots of training examples. Think about every spy thriller novel that had a mistress, or every movie script that had a mistress and the wife finds out, right? It's just encountering these situations and saying, well, if this happened previously, then do this. So that doesn't make it any less scary or threatening, but rather it further reinforces how we should be using AI in an ethical way. And there's certain companies out there, like Anthropic, will be very secure around this and very concerned around this. So that's kind of where I'll start this last series on advanced prompting techniques with that story, because now we're going to go down into the drudgery of, we've talked about roles before, we've talked about how to create examples. Now we're going to actually start having some fun with this. And so basically, we're going to start by talking about specialized techniques. And if I recall last time, what we did is we started and we said, Claude, I really want you to talk to me like a pirate. Okay. Please do this for the entire conversation. And so we start this initial prompt out, and let's see if the internet is working. There we go. It's a little bit slower because it's public, but here we go. So we say, Claude, I want you to talk to me like a pirate. Please do this for the entire conversation. This is the initial prompt that is going to guide your entire conversation. So I can say, tell me about Eastham, Massachusetts. And we've already set up that whole framework in which Claude is going to be portraying the role of a pirate. And here we go. Ahoy, you be asking about Eastham, that fine port on Cape Cod. So what's happening is with this initial prompt, it's constraining a certain set of knowledge bases. It's thinking about the entire internet, and this first task is going out and saying, I want you to use this subset of knowledge in which you are a pirate. You have all of the linguistic properties of that pirate to talk to me. And so we've built on this idea of tasks and prompts and giving the idea of you have the AI being this eager intern that seeks to please. And our goal now is to proverbially exploit that intern in the best of ways possible so that it will always give you the answers you want. And those answers you want are going to be truthful answers, answers that are not hallucinated, and answers that will tell you if it does not know something. And so this is the first extension of taking this pirate prompt where we're doing something kind of cute and coy, saying, "Arr, yeah, I'm talking about this," to now extending this to large language models. The first thing we want to think about when we are prompting is, what is the goal of this chat that I'm working with? And those goals can change over time. So you could say, I just want to have one chat that's dedicated to helping me organize my kitchen. And then you build off of that with the next task and say, okay, what do I cook? Or where do I go? And you actually converse with it. And you converse with it at a deep level where you give it information back saying, I like this, I don't like this. And at the end of the day, you can create a profile on yourself. And you can use Claude to create a profile that you carry over. That's one aspect. The second aspect, and we'll get to that in a bit, because I know I think last time there was one or two questions on how can you get Claude to recognize you a priori or to start with. And this is where we start. It's with this expert helper approach. So every time you go into Claude, if you are doing something more than, I would say, the equivalent of a Google query. First off, if you're doing a Google query with Claude, please use Google. The world will thank you. You won't be throwing 3 glasses of water out the window, all of that stuff that I've talked about. But if you use it more effectively, start with this expert helper approach. So ask the AI to act as someone with specific experience. And what happens is that this allows the AI to remember it's a pirate. Except it's not a pirate, it might be a lawyer. It might be a zoning expert for your local municipality. But what it's doing is it's saying, I have access to all of this information on the internet. From historical novels, to stars, to the periodic table, to zoning laws that I might care about. This allows you to zoom in and say, only focus on zoning laws. And what happens is you can use this to have useful advices. So you can have it give you explanations, it can have it cite, it can always return back with some sort of what we call agentic response. This is an agent, that agent is a lawyer, it's a doctor, right? It's not replacing these things, but it's using the fundamental knowledge bases that go into those training sets. You wouldn't want to ask a firefighter how to fix your car, right? So don't just ask Claude, and that's rule one on how you can get it to hallucinate. You just give it this short little question. So, and we did some examples before. We say, how should I organize my kitchen, right? That might be a good question, but it doesn't have that context available. So what we say is we give it that pirate's role at the start. We say, please act as a friendly professional organizer who specializes in seniors to make their kitchens more accessible and efficient. So now you're not going to be just getting, I don't know, the Property Brothers trying to tell you how to organize. You can get specialized feedback based on these knowledge bases. And then what we do is we give it additional context. Give me advice on organizing my kitchen to make cooking easier with arthritis in my hands and some vision limitations. So all of this is creating a profile on you, right? Reflected in a mirror that's an agent, right? So you're giving it the context that I have arthritis, for me, it's my knee. I run a lot, I do martial arts, and I ask for specialized training for people with knee issues, right? And so all of this knowledge base goes into helping you get better answers. So let's say we are done talking about pirates. So let's go ahead and go to Eastham zoning laws. I'm sure everyone loves the zoning laws. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Here's our zoning bylaws amended. I'm sure you have all of the time in the world to read this 181 page document. I'm sure it's a real page turner. But you might not have all the time in the world. But Claude does. So Claude can read through all of these pages of this document about 30 seconds. So if I were just to ask it, what can you tell me about Eastham zoning laws? It's going to give me back generic information. And it's gonna, remember, it's that eager intern that's gonna say, I know you wanna know about zoning, I know a little bit about Eastham, I know a little bit about zoning. I'm going to blend the two and hope I don't make a mistake. We don't want that, because you're gonna be putting a porch on your property, the last thing you wanna do is have that hallucinate and have to deal with the folks at building. So what I'm gonna do is I downloaded this document, which should be here, Eastham zoning bylaws. Let me just put this down here so we know where it is. And you can copy and paste any file you want. You can deal with images, it can deal with documents, it can do those things. But remember, it has a context window, right? We talked about that at the beginning along. It's like a robot that's memory gets more full. The bigger it gets, the harder it's to remember things at the beginning. And if it fills up, you can't do that. So long documents, 1,000 pages long, right now is too limiting. It's too much information, but I believe it should do 185 pages just fine.
Ross?
Yes.
Are you dealing with the upgrade? Because I have my laptop open and I don't see the same screen.
You don't.
Okay.
Interesting. So do you just see the standard chat bot?
I'm in the chat box.
Yep.
And I do not see,
Okay, perfect. Yep. So if you are on mobile, if you wanted to add a file, you could just click these little buttons. Yep.
okay.
Yep.
All right,
So you will see that the web functionality, will probably have a little bit more, functionality to it. So it'll have these like pre-built prompts down below that you can play around with, you can connect apps. There's a lot of things that you can do.
Question.
Yes.
Back the previous example,
Mhm.
and I've missed your other lecture, so I apologize. Does AI, remember I have arthritis that I will be doing in the kitchen, does it build a profile on me for everything I ask?
It can, and they're continually working on that. So if you are within a single chat, at least within Claude, which we're gonna be talking with, it will remember that. If it gets longer and longer and longer, then you might have to remind it, because it has to deal with the amount of text that it's reading. But there are ways I'll get to show you later on, prompts that you can always put at the start of the conversation, where we'll always remember.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't want it.
I don't want to profile, but, and then I pitch my head with my right hand.
Okay. Then what I would say is, if you are concerned about so the first, let me take a step back. The first thing is, in the AI that we're using, Claude, it's what's called the constitutional AI, so it doesn't store your data. So it's not going to store it and use it for other purposes. So that's one of the reasons why that I like to use this. The second is, I would say, don't put into anything Claude that you wouldn't want anyone else knowing. I would say that. So for me, I have no problem giving my entire life story. In fact, you'll see this little personal transformation framework down here. This is about 12 months of me working with Claude. So I would take a Claude, I would complain, I had a bad day, I would give it a complaint. I'd tell all the good, all the bad, and it would really come up with a psychological profile.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that, because I know that Claude is a constitutional AI, is not gonna sell that data. Now, what happens is, those Claudes get really long, those Claude conversations get very, very long. This is not 6 months or 8 months of these conversations. What I do is about halfway through a conversation, or every 15 or so chats, I'll have a little profile that I update, and at the very end, I'll copy and paste and carry that over. So that's how I can retain it. You don't have to worry about that, because it's only gonna be retained in that chat. And I would say, again, don't give a Claude any information you don't feel comfortable sharing. So, was there another question? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just drag and drop the Eastham zoning bylaw. So here you can see, all I've done is drag and drop it. If you're on your phone, you have to click a plus, and you can give it a picture, you can do it, give a whole bunch of different things, and I'll show you examples of this. But we're gonna use this example as an expert prompt, as an expert to help us. So you are an expert at municipal regulations, specifically around building and permitting. Okay? So this isn't the most fancy prompt in the world, but this will still just say, let's zoom in on this. The next step is I'm going to give it context. I'm going to give you my town's zoning bylaws below. Okay? So now we're giving it extra context. So instead of it starting to say, oh, I know everything about Eastham, please let me give you that coffee, you're providing it with additional information. So think about this, if this is a contract you want to have reviewed, if you want to have a legal document reviewed, if you want to have a birthday card written, but you have a certain way of writing, you can take pictures of your old birthday cards that you wrote, put them in here, and have it write a birthday card like you usually do. So what you're doing is you're putting in additional information. Okay? And I'm just gonna start this chat. So up at the top, what you'll see is you'll see the files that you are able to put in. And we have the prompt. Now, you can see Claude's taking a little bit of time. It's not as chatty as it used to be. Why? Because it's dealing with 185 pages. So what it's doing is it's actually going through and reading through and then gives you a summary. So here's what it found within that knowledge base. It was able to tell me about the zoning districts, the regulations for each district, the site plan approvals, what uses are allowed and not allowed, and just say, okay, I don't know, I just bought an old cabin on the water. Okay, perfect example. So now, what we have here is I started chatting a little bit more. It says the conversation is over the length limit. I did this on purpose. This is because of that context window I was telling you about. And what happens is that all of the space of this 181 page document that used up all of the information where I was only be able to get one chat up. And you say, well, why did it tell me after I started writing? Because it's counting each one of these characters, each one of these tokens that I'm starting to write. Now, there's going to be different ways that you can deal with this. You can one, try to find a smaller document, which in our case is probably not great. There are other technologies that help us do this. So we've kind of hit the limit for this case on Claude. But for example, what my company does, my company has ways of decomposing these documents and feeding it into Claude in a certain way where you can answer all of this as you want. So, but I also re-put the zoning laws in there. So I just clicked off of that because remember, I already gave it one, so I don't need to give it two again. It's not in its knowledge base. So I'm gonna give you, I gave you the zoning bylaws. So what I want to say, I'm thinking of buying a property that's an old cabin on the water. It's a complete gut. And I want to build a new property on it. What regulations do I have to worry about? Please cite your answers. The key right here is this. We're giving it extra knowledge. We're saying that you don't have this in your internal knowledge base. I'm gonna give you some extra knowledge, but I don't want you messing it up. I want you to cite for me. So here we go. Floodplain regulations. I'm shocked that people care about wastewater on Cape Cod. You'll have the demolition requirements. So if the cabin is over 75 years old, you might have a historic property. You might have certain setback requirements. You'll have different definitions of a cabin versus a cottage versus a dwelling. For me, I don't know, I see a small house by the water, it's a cabin. But Eastham has these delineations. So a cabin is really something that's under 500 square feet with no kitchen facilities. I didn't know that. A cottage is the step up and then a dwelling. So what happens is now, if you are interested in buying this property, what you can do is you can minimize your risk now. You can start to say, okay, can you estimate what this is going to do? What is the impact going to be? So let's go ahead and see what else is going on. So if the existing cabin is non-conforming, you might need a special permit. You can rebuild after catastrophe after 12 months. Exactly the opposite of Mashpee, which is a raise and replace town. As long as you keep one wall up, you can put a mansion wherever you want. Okay, so what we've now done is we use this expert prompt right up here to say that it's an expert in regulations, so it knows what to look for. And then we gave it an additional set of knowledge in the form of a document. Now, with any of these large models, whether you're using ChatGPT or Claude, you can just upload a file. You can upload multiple files and compare them. Let's say if you have two draft contracts, right? One of my clients is the Department of Defense. And so they are very interested in policy irregularities, right? So think about every branch of the military. They'll have different policies for this thing, that thing, or the other thing. And bureaucrats just love adding more and more regulations to policies, and oftentimes they conflict. There's disagreements, you don't know where to go to, and it's too many pages for the average human to find. AI can find it like this. You can give it 2 documents and say, where are there conflicts? Where do I have to be concerned? What grade level was this written at? You can essentially use all of this to really create a superpower. So let's go down and dive deeper, right? So it's definitely a cabin on the water, and it's probably 100 years old. I want to put in a new single family home. What are my risks? What are the regulations specifically I have to deal with? And please estimate the headaches I have to go through when dealing with the town. Yes,
What does Claude do if you say please or if you don't?
it's a really good question. I do the gambit of being very mean and very nice to my AI. They're older models, and this is not, I would say probably about a year ago, were receptive to that. In fact, some of the early ChatGPT models, because the way that ChatGPT trained was using what was called game theory, where you try to win a game, and if you do something right, you get a reward. So what early research found was that if you offered ChatGPT $500 to do something, it would actually do it better. So that was older technology. The newer models are a little less caring when it comes to that. But I will say, if it in terms of building a profile on you, it won't remember the information you like, but if you start getting it to be chatty, it will start to remember what you kind of like. So I have friends that use this that swear to their AI left and right, and then 6 months later it starts swearing back at them, and they find it hilarious. So right now, there are different ways of saying please and thank you to try to exploit it. But those have more kind of diminuting returns as opposed to about a year ago. But I will say, be nice to your future overlords. You don't want to be on that list where when the Terminator comes. Okay, that's not gonna happen. So what happens here is, based on our 100-year-old waterfront cabin, here are the specific risks. So what it actually did is, using the information you provided it with in the zoning bylaws and your profile, it gave you a ranked list of headaches. So it didn't just say, here are the headaches that you're going to encounter. Here's a ranked list. So the first step, you're gonna have to file a notice of intent to demolish. Typically, even before you did this, you'd historically probably talk to a lawyer who charged you $1,200, $1,500 just for that conversation. It's now been democratized. That lawyer does not need that. You're not going to be giving that lawyer that money. And so what's interesting is that this flags this as a high risk. So if you're trying to use this as an investment property, you're probably going to be sitting down for a year at minimum. Okay, we have our definition problem. We have our floodplain requirements. We have our site coverage limitations, so you can see depending on the lot size, you can only have about 11 to 20%. So that's probably wastewater. Here's your building site, here's everything, all in one go. And we did that in what? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? I didn't have to find the right zoning board lawyer. I didn't have to spend the money for that conversation. And so, again, what I'm saying is this does not replace a lawyer. This does not replace a doctor. Please do not think of it like that. What this allows you to do is to go to that lawyer prepared. It allows him to do his job more effectively. He doesn't have to pull permits. He doesn't have this historical information. And we can go ahead and read all of this stuff in an instant. Yes?
You gave it a property designation.
You can give it anything, so, we can say, let's say, I want to have a 4-bedroom Cape house, what zoning district would I have to be in to have this, right? So we can go as deep in terms of the property history we want, we can even give it its assessor's cards. So for example, some of the work that my company does with other towns on the Cape is that we take those old assessor cards for a property, we digitize all that into structured data, and then we can use that to help expedite approvals for local permitting. And so here you can say, we put in this rough designation of a property, so I know it's a 4-bedroom Cape house. Here's all of the where the districts where you can have them. So you can't put them in the marina, the well field protection. And then here are all of the size limitations. So it's really your imagination is your limitation of what you want to put into it. The caveat to that is Claude will tell you what you want, what it wants you to hear. So if you are going to give it a very detailed question, say around Medicaid or Medicare, let's say, I know there's lots of conversations going on that in the federal space right now, you can pull those policies as documents and give it to Claude and use it to that. Don't use its raw knowledge base. So anything that's kind of like institutional knowledge that you couldn't just easily find on the internet, you'll want to provide it with additional context, it's additional data. If it's readily available on the internet, if someone's talked a lot about, I don't know, politics or movies, those types of things, it'll be fine on its knowledge base. So what we're seeing here is these are tickets to minimize hallucinations. Because if I go ahead and said, I want to build a cabin on Cape Cod in Eastham, please tell me about the zoning laws. It's gonna start trying to answer, but it recognized that it didn't have it. That's what some of the new models are going for, is that if it doesn't have that institutional data, it's going to try to go out and find where it's accessed. It doesn't guarantee that it will always get that information, because it could be in a format that's not super easy for it to get. And you can see it's trying to think through each of these steps. And it doesn't do a bad job. Yeah, because it's going to because Eastham has all of their documents very well indexed on the website. So that's the beauty of Claude, is that the newer models will actually go out and they'll start searching for things on the internet. And so people ask me a lot of, is AI intelligent? Is it like data from Star Trek, those types of things? And my fundamental answer is no. Because it's not self-aware. It's self-aware in such a way that it can go out and find new information, but it can't retrain itself so that it becomes part of its base level information. And that's one of the limitations of the current computational infrastructure for this, is that it doesn't have that ability to think and reason because of that context window. Now, I think about 10 years, that'll drastically change, especially where you have quantum computing and these new methodologies coming up. But for right now, it's really important to remember that these are mind mimicry. So we've seen this here. You want to be very cognizant of the expert helper approach. For health questions, give it that context as a patient technology teacher, as a home safety specialist, give it that initial context. So, what I want you to do is I'd like you to take a few minutes. If you have your device that has Claude on it, please use it. If you don't have one, please visit a friend that might have one. And for those that don't have one, I will do it up here on the board with you. Is I want you to create your own expert helper requests for something that you're interested in. So, for example, I'm going to Europe in a couple weeks as a travel planner who specializes in trips for seniors, limited mobility, or as a gardening expert who works with older adults that have arthritis, as a nutrition specialist who helps seniors maintain healthy diets on fixed incomes. Take a few minutes and play around with that. And then I'll have you guys try to share your answers up top. And for those that don't have it, I will walk you through an example. So if you have it, just try to drown out my voice. Don't let me bias you. I'm very interested in, I don't know, someone give me something.
Mosquito and tick sprays that are also ecological.
Awesome.
Many organizations or companies.
Okay. So we have a prompt. So let's think about let's break that down into an expert. So let's say I want you to be an expert in the following. In sustainability, environmental impacts,
Health and well-being.
and pest control. With an additional focus for health, well. Okay. So it's going here. So it's gonna help us with these topics. So it's gonna be using that knowledge base.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem. So it's gonna use this knowledge base right here. And say, this is my expert. Okay? Now, what I'm gonna say is I live in East Town. And boy, is it mosquito season. I keep getting bit, but I care about the environment. What products could I use as repellent, but are also good for the environment? Okay. So oil of lemon and eucalyptus. Picardin. Citronella-based products. Again, this is something that I know nothing about. Physical barriers, environmental approaches, remove standing water, encourage natural predators, applications, avoid DEET products, okay?
What?
DEET, okay? What's DEET? Okay. So it says to avoid these things that have DEET in it. So now we've conditioned it with the right context. Can you recommend any brand name products I can buy? There you go. So this is an example of setting up an expert and giving it a little more context. Okay, now please create a ranked list of the most effective yet most sustainable products. Okay, so now it's just taken that information and re-ranked it in the most effective way. So I guess I'm really gonna have to try this oil of lemon eucalyptus. This is, good. And then different types of treated cure, clothing and products. And then it gives you specific products as well. So this idea of an expert can be extended to not only giving you information, but giving you information in a way that you want. Okay? Now, I inadvertently told Claude something about me, but I liked its response. So what I can do is say something like this. Claude, I really enjoyed, or I really appreciated this response. I'd like you to thoroughly analyze this conversation and build a profile on me that I can use for future conversations. You will want to structure this in a way that it will be the first prompt I ever give you in a conversation. So what I said here is that we took a task, and that task was actually reflective of something that I care about, which is environmental sustainability, being able to be green, quote unquote. And I'm suspecting that that's going to be something that I would carry with me to other conversations. Let's say if I wanted to build a house on Cape Cod. So instead of having to have Claude that every time, what I'm going to do is Claude is actually going to go through and analyze this conversation. And oops, I accidentally put like that. And we have this prompt that we can use. So it creates a profile on. So we've got the local area. It identified that we can deal with eco-friendly solutions. And again, this isn't great because it's just one short conversation. The more and more you use it, the more and more you give feedback and say, wow, this is good, wow, this is bad, do this. You can use this technique of analyzing this conversation to create a prompt. And so now we get my values and priorities in my ranked list, and then it starts to infer the communication style I'd like to have it return. So as you start chatting with Claude, be sure to give it feedback. So going back to your question, which is, should I say thank you or no thank you? That's up to you. But Claude will always respond back to feedback. So you always tell it, this was a good response. But tell it why it was a good response. And if it was a bad response, tell it was a bad response and explain why. Yes.
So if I ask Claude, tell me about Russ Wilcox,
Mm-hmm.
will it tell tell me everything that's here?
Oh, you will find the other more famous Russ Wilcox, which is a former CEO of E-Ink that made a couple $1 billion in the early 2000s. But let's see.
That's not you?
No, unfortunately, that's not me. I'm still working on it. I have met him. We actually have a mutual friend that's a venture capitalist. I get a call from my friend. He says, Russ, I'm here with Russ. My favorite story about that is I was actually working with an intern, got on the Slack, and I got a message saying, Dad, question mark? It was Russ Wilcox's son Carter. Funny. So, well, we can go ahead and say, what can you tell me about Russ Wilcox? So let's start with this. So what I will say, oh, here we go. Yep, you got the former CEO of E-Ink, right? So this is probably based on his Wikipedia. I did not go to Harvard. I did not go to Yale. I went to BU. Okay, we can say that's the wrong Russ Wilcox. I want Russ Wilcox, the AI and data guy, who's been to Davos.
This is still the name, right?
Yeah, I know. So it's semantic. So let's see. It says, I don't know about this person, but it's gonna go out and search on the web. It found my website. And here's everything about me. 16 years of experience, BA in physics, MIT. It got my thesis somehow. I guess my CV must be on the website someplace. I got this, 2 TED Talks, Forbes multiple times.
Doesn't mention.
Oh, and it found out that I had family in Orleans for generations. So, that was probably from a talk I gave at the Cape Cod, Technology Council. But yes. Yes,
It's interesting that when you just said, tell me about Russ Wilcox, one thing it didn't say was, this is just one Russ. You know what I mean? It didn't
Yes.
say that there could be others, or there were no caveats in there, it just gave you.
100%. And this often goes into other more deeper conversations around equity and those types of things. A good example is, who are the 10 most famous philosophers of all time? And not one woman, was listed, right? And you might say, oh my God, this is horrible, it's misogynistic. Well, yes, but maybe not. Right, if you look at the entire history of philosophy, right, who's probably the most cited? Plato, Aristotle, and who's most talked about on the internet? Exactly, and that's what it goes to, right, and that's why. So Russ Wilcox is a great presence, he has a Wikipedia article, he's been around longer than me, and it just makes that assumption. And so that's the thing that you should remember, again. AI is that eager intern aiming to please. It will make mistakes. It might not make factual mistakes, it can at times, but it might make misattributions. And in fact, it gets cognizant of personal information. If you try to go too deep, it will tell you, no, I can't do this. Because, for example, one of the services that I offer to political candidates is opposition research, but on steroids. I can go through every single deed document. I can go through every single piece of record that references you, every single PDF. I have to use traditional machine learning methodologies for that. One, because I have a very strong sense of ethics around that. Like, I don't want a spouse being brought up, those types of things. Claude will shut you down immediately if you try to do that. It says, that's not super ethical. ChatGPT, on the other hand, well, sure, just tell me it's an experiment. But these are the types of things that you have to be cognizant of when dealing with this type of stuff. So what I want us to do is one last thing, kind of extending on this expert approach, is we can create teams of experts. So let's say I don't know anything about a field. I don't know anything about sustainability and bug repellent. So we can say, I want you to assemble a team of expert, I don't know, marketing individuals. These have to be the best, real people in their field, and I want 5 of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Claude to create profiles on experts. And I'm always going to create an odd version of them. Why? So they don't get to a consensus easy. Odd numbers. Think about the Supreme Court, think about the appellate courts, you always have odd. So what's going to happen is we're going to give it a task and have our experts argue back and forth with each other. And it's going to actually mitigate even more misfacts. So what it's going to go through is gets Neil Patel, Ann Handley, Gary Vernichuk, Seth Godin, Rand Fishkin. Okay. My name is Russ Wilcox, and I am an AI expert. My problem is that there's another Russ Wilcox, who is more famous than me.
Be a good thing.
Please, find information on me and have the team argue 7 times on how to improve my brain.
Wow.
So I'm not a marketing person, but I'm going to have Claude become my team of marketing people. And the first thing it's going to do, it's going to go through and search for an entire website. So while this is doing that, I'm going to say this goes back to AI is not going to take your job. Someone who knows how to use AI will. I can replace entire marketing departments with these 3 lines and actually be better. So it found me, and it found my arch nemesis, the other Russ Wilcox. So it gets these contexts. And now what you see is you have the experts arguing against each other. And this is great. So you can get people at odds. You can get Barack Obama and Donald Trump to argue against each other, which is hilarious to do. But what's interesting is that it starts revealing very interesting logical fallacies in issues. So what's happening is it's going through, and they're actually, Neil Patel has a very prominent way of marketing, so does Gary. They're very different. So they're gonna be at odds with each other. They're gonna go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Oh, okay, so apparently I need a different name. I'm not good enough for that Russ Wilcox. They want Russ AI. You know, that's not very good. But they go back and forth, and this goes an odd number of times. And it's very interesting. You can read up and see how these arguments are happening. And then we can say, write a detailed marketing plan using the experts' feedback as an artifact. Be brutal and tell me how to improve. So it's going to use that feedback from those experts that you've essentially played a game with. And now it's going to create a whole strategy for me. So what this is doing, it's not just making information more easy to gain. It's democratizing fields of knowledge that you don't even know exist. I can now compete. If I was a local candidate running for office, I'm now running for office with a nuclear weapon. I can tell it what my strengths are, come up with strategies, I can give it data. Oh, now it's also just giving me like different ROI estimates on what I should be doing if I had $250,000.
They're spelling.
But, so what's going on here is that it's creating an entire content just based on that knowledge base. And so the key is, it all started with this expert of experts approach. Now, you don't need to do this every time. To use this sparingly, only when you have like hard or detailed problems you really want to think about. If you're trying to say, oh, I need to come up with a new trust, for example, right? And I have 7 kids and all this type of stuff. Bring up the best legal lawyers of all time, have them argue about 7 times all the things I have to be worried about. It'll find things like that, right? So this is the extension of that expert approach. And that brings us to what we'll be doing next week. So we now have the foundations of using large language models to use in our everyday life. And I would really suggest you taking the next time to play around with that, come back with questions, and we can kind of do a little bit of workshopping. Next time, we're gonna go across the ocean, and we're gonna talk about a society that has been making their entire populace AI first since 2018. And why we are losing to China. And what can we do to win?
What are they doing over there?
So they have AI first policies for everyone in their society. So whether you are a child learning, whether you are a senior looking to get retrained, they have a strong AI education program
Oh, wow.
and how to make people AI first. Meanwhile, here in the United States, up in Hingham, a student who used AI to help him write a better paper, not write the paper, but help him better his paper, got an F, got kicked out of the National Honor Society, went to the federal court. The federal judge said, oh, I agree with the school because it only takes the student 9 hours compared to the other students that took 50 hours. Yeah. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna evolve a little bit just to show a different viewpoint on AI in society. And then the following week, we get to go into more fun, which is going to be around image models. So how do we deal with images? How can we create videos? How can we create images? Those types of things. And yeah, so I have a few minutes for questions if anyone has any.
I have a question, about the models that the experts, put forth. They put those models according to everything that is known
Mhm.
about them and so forth.
Yep.
Is there any blind side?
Yes, so you have to remember that these people are just the approximations, right? You're not talking with Plato, you're not talking about these people, it's using their works and inferring. And so it's not going to be as if that person's answering the question, it's gonna take kind of their world viewpoint. And so it's an approximation. And so that's very useful for us because we get 2 sides or multiple sides of an argument. So what'll happen is that they'll find like holes in each other's logic and create a stronger outcome for you. But this should not be the same as, say, recreating a person. And there's lots of ethical questions around that we can talk towards later on in other sessions as well. Yes.
So a good friend of mine is an English teacher at a college in Boston. And she's had these ethical issues about students using AI and calling them out on it and whether to pass them in the course or not, and it's really keeping her up nights. If I hear what you're saying, our education system needs to be more like China. We need to accept AI.
So I would say, that makes me want to give a whole lecture on this.
I don't want to do that.
Oh.
I need to know.
Yes, so my argument is that our education is not an education system. If you take a look at how our education system was built, Horace Mann had an idea, but Henry Ford took it over and saw that this is an opportunity to create manufacturing workers. That's why we have the same school hours, we have the same desks, we have those types of things. Now, teachers, of course, have a challenge with AI from the cheating perspective. So if I were to go and have Claude write an article for me and cite it, that's cheating.
But many of them don't understand AI.
Right, and that's why we need education. That's why we need a concerted effort. So where I say we need to be more like China is not in our education system, but understanding how AI can be used, because right now, who's driving the narrative? It's media in Hollywood saying AI is cheating. I was getting into a conversation with someone, and they said, well, if my kid can use AI, isn't that the same thing as letting him use steroids on the hockey team? I said, that's false equivalency, right? And in many ways, AI could be used like those steroids for an ethical way. So for example, back last December, I actually had to go debate some very high ups on architecture of AI models. And I used to do this when I was a physicist. I used to do the crazy math. I'd spend all hours of the day trying to figure out these computational models. I've been out of that for about 6 years. And like any good student, I waited the night before to prep for this thing. So my fly out to San Francisco, I said, oh my God, I am screwed. I am going to lose. But I need a cram. What I did was I took all of the papers that I needed to learn and I put them into Claude. And I gave Claude all of my transcripts. I gave Claude all of my talks, all of my background, where I succeeded. And I said, help me learn this, starting from what I know. And what it was able to do was finally able to find the fundamental issues that I already understood. So first it would start giving me questions to test me on whether I knew this really or not. And then it would start extending those questions, saying, what if you thought about it like this? And I'd get it right. And they say, oh, you just learned this one part of this paper. So what's happening is that removes the cold start problem from learning. You're building on something you already know. So for that student who took 9 hours to that paper, he actually learned far more than his peers ever did. But that's cheating. Because there's not a concerted education of what is AI education. There's no policy on that. And so that's some of the work that I do. So that will be a whole other series. I promise I'll do. I have plenty of time to do one on AI education. But that's one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite things to do. We need to not re-educate just our kids. All facets of our society have to realize the next 5 years are going to be absolutely insane. And I'm not saying that from a scary standpoint with Russia and China and technology, right? But we are in the middle of a revolution that we have not seen before. It is far surpassing the Industrial Revolution. The only thing that I can think of it being equivalent to is the Agricultural Revolution 12,000 years ago. That's how rapidly we're changing. Yes.
That's the problem with the kids at the register. If the register goes down and they really count.
100%. And so my argument against that is we have to go back to classical form of education. So we should be having oral exams. We should be testing knowledge. We should be testing critical thinking. We should be testing adaptivity, not just little facts, right? Think about how your grandkids probably use math multiplication right now. They just do 3 times 2 is what, 6, right? They just memorize that, right? They don't understand conceptually, this is 3 groupings of 2 or 2 groupings of 3. So what AI allows us to do is actually back to those more fundamental questions around thinking that will mitigate those challenges. But on that note, I have to head out for another meeting. Yes, one last question.
Are there dates scheduled for your next presentation?
Yes,
I don't know them right now,
we don't know them right now.
but.
They are.
Be in the newsletter, there might be August, then there's.
Yeah, there's one in August, I know, and I'm continuing along throughout the winter and into the spring too. So you guys are not getting away from me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Awesome. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out with these, play around. Please play around with the class.